So we are talking about the 3 chapter. We are talking about the introduction chapter. We are talking about the literature review chapter as well as the methodology chapter. And both of the research, either is quantitative or qualitative, okay, have the same weighted chapter. Means that you have both 3 chapters when it comes to research proposal. However, there are some instances, if the literature is too long, it might be break into 2 different chapters. Or maybe you want to separate between literature review and your framework and hypothesis development. Okay, so basic research should have 5 chapters, but there are some research which goes up to 6 or 7 chapters, depending on how much do you write. So a research proposal should indicate whether the research study is quantitative or qualitative. You need to first-hand signify or inform the reader, is this research qualitative or quantitative? Yeah. So that is very important because that gives a sense of direction and fulfill the expectation of the reader. Okay, because some the researcher, they are divided into 2 groups. Some are which are prone to quantitative, some which are prone to qualitative. So the research proposal is an overall plan designed to obtain answer to research question or research problem. And bear in mind, okay, the research is only as good as it can be if it managed to answer the research question. Maknanya research yang bagus itu ialah research yang akhirnya menjawab soalan kajian. So therefore, on that note, maknanya when you have completed everything, you have to revisit your research question and provide those answers. Yeah. So if you have 2 research questions, means that you have to answer both of the questions. If you have more than that, means that you have to answer to all of it. Yeah. Remember, yeah, at the end of the day, okay, for every research, the most important thing is to be able to answer the research question that you have already posted in chapter 1. Yeah. So that is why the research question is very, very important in research because it will act as a sense of direction or will give a sense of direction to the researcher as well as to the reader what they are going to expect at the end of the research. So the research proposal must tell you, your research supervisors and reviewer, the following information. Number 1, what you are proposing to do. Awak nak buat apa sebenarnya? Okay. What will be the area of study? What will be the focal point? What will be the problem? What will be the issue? You have to inform or pre-inform that to the readers. Okay. So this will help the readers to comprehend the content untuk pembaca memahami apakah yang you cuba lakukan. So remember, you have to tell us what you are proposing to do. Yeah, what you are proposing to do. What are the ideas? Yeah. Number 2 is how you plan to find the answers. So that lies in your methodology. Yeah, how you are going to go about and find answers to what you are proposing. For example, you are proposing a work-life balance. So how you're going to actually study, explore, examine work-life balance. So that is in your research objective, yeah, as well as your methodology. So therefore, the research question will actually create the research objective that you need to fulfill, and the methodology will support to fulfill the research question as well as the research objective. Number 3, why you select the proposed strategies of investigation. Yeah, why you selected the proposed strategies. Okay, at the beginning, it is a very straightforward, means that you go into articles, journals, yeah, you read them, you start to actually find what are the discrepancies, what are the research gaps, and then you propose a topic. Once you have proposed the topic, you have identified the problem, and then you come up with the research question. Once the research question is there, so you have to propose strategy, which is actually your chapter 3, yeah, the methodology. So during the methodology chapter, okay, listen to me carefully, yeah. When you reach chapter 3, which is the methodology, the researcher or you, yourself, your group need to actually make certain decision. you perlu buat keputusan. Yeah. So let us look into one aspect of the methodology. Let's say we look at the research design. So you have to be clear of what design or approach that you choose for your research. Such as one of the element will be unit of analysis. So apakah unit analysis yang you akan gunakan? Yeah. So ada beberapa yang you kena pilih satu sahaja. So therefore, it is very critical at that stage you be able to make a sound decision. And you have to come to a consensus with your group or team members, okay, in order to actually choose the best possible approach that can help you to complete the research. Yeah. So therefore, you have to tell us why you selected the proposed strategies of investigation. Okay, this is basically the content of a research proposal. If you look at both of these, quantitative and qualitative, they are almost similar, except that when it comes to the research methodology, that might be a little bit different in terms of the design or in terms of the analysis. Yeah, so but they still actually carries a significant weight of analysis. And if you notice, for the quantitative, there is a conceptual framework, yeah, and hypothesis, whereas for qualitative, they don't have that. Yeah. Faham ya? Kalau you tengok betul-betul tu 1 hingga 7 sama. Ya. Tapi when it comes to quantitative, you ada 8 dan 9, barulah research methodology. Tetapi kalau you tengok kualitatif, dia tidak ada 8 dan 9, iaitu conceptual framework dan hypothesis. Clear?
Clear, Doktor.
Alright. Other than that, it is similar. So I'm expecting that you have been reading a lot. Yeah, I really expect that to happen, even though I know it might be a big challenge for you to actually read all the articles. But please, okay, the amount that you read, okay, will actually transcend in your writing. And dia akan nampak nanti whether you have read enough or not. And so therefore, you need to read. So like I said, the regime is very simple. You just need to read and write. Read and write, yeah. All right, so that is basically the difference. Except for the qualitative, they don't have the conceptual framework as well as the hypothesis because it is more argumentative in nature. Okay, so what is actually the content itself? So first is background of study. So this section will establish the area of research. Maknanya you kena tengok secara helicopter view, yeah, the general view, the broad view of what area that you are indulging. So that will provide a context for the research problem and provide information to the research topic. So this is very important, okay, because the background of the study will actually help you to formulate the problem statement or the research problem. If you don't actually conduct this properly, it will be very difficult for you to justify your problem or the issue that you're trying to actually look at. Yeah. So therefore, it will actually impede on the quality of the topic. And the second one will be the problem statement. Okay, the problem statement focus on issues relating to its central theme. Yeah, identifying of the gaps in the existing body of knowledge. So nanti kalau ada masa saya akan tunjukkan macam mana kita buat benda tu. Ya. Okay, cuma you kena faham macam ni. When you read a journal, okay, when you read an article from any journal, you must be able to identify the similarities and the differences, as well as the recommendation by that researcher. Yeah, you dapat journal tu, katalah you ada 5 journal, you kena tengok apa persamaan dia, apa perbezaan dia dan apakah cadangan dia untuk research di masa hadapan. So that will help you to identify, okay, whether there is a gap, whether there is a gap in the existing body of knowledge. Jadi kalau contoh you baca Ahmad, Jadi Pak Ahmad kata, okay, for this topic or for this study, okay, future researcher should look into factor X. So that warrants you, that warrants you the authority to further explore factor X. You tengok dalam jurnal tu, kalau dia kata, okay, this study failed to capture the element of A. So that will give you the right or the authority to further look into factor A. Itu cara kita baca jurnal. So bukan sekadar membaca dan summary saja, tetapi you kena synthesize the content of the articles. You kena tengok, okay, apa yang dia buat dan apa yang dia tak buat. Apa persamaan antara journal A, journal B, journal C. And then you start to formulate the scenario. So that is why in literature, literature review is so important, because it will help to create, the desired topic, as well as to help support your argument. So once you have come out with the problem statement, then goes to the objective and the research question. For this level of study, it is not a big issue because the research question will be very straightforward. But I would like to remind you, you don't need a lot of research question. 1 or 2 is already enough. Okay, 1 or 2 is already enough. There are some students who have like 4 or 5. Why? Because they break down the question. You don't have to worry, because you just focus on what you want to achieve. At the end of the day, some of the analysis will support some other findings that might be relevant to the focal point of the study. So for the objective of the study, so for quantitative, this section includes statement on both your study, main and specific objective. So later we'll look into this different school of thought. Saya akan terangkan semula nanti. Okay, but as for now, we just want to know, what do you want to do? Dalam objektif kita cuma nak tahu apa yang you nak buat. So, when you write down your research question, contoh, where do you live? Okay, itu soalan. Betul? So, objektifnya akan jadi to identify where he live. Nampak ya? Soalannya, where does he live? Objektifnya, to identify where he live. Itu simple. Maknanya, if you manage to come up with the research question, the objective will just follow through. You cuma tukarkan dalam bentuk, satu dalam bentuk soalan dan dia bertukar kepada dalam bentuk pernyataan apa yang you nak buat. So that will be the objective of the study. And then for the scope and limitation of the study. So this section should list any problem you think you might encounter or concerning. Whatever that may hinder the research or the study, to finish or to complete. Apa saja yang menghalang. But remember, in the scope and limitation of the study is only looking at the study, not the researcher. Halangan ini adalah halangan kepada kajian, bukan halangan kepada penyelidik. Ramai student dia tulis halangan kepada penyelidik. Dia kata constraint, cost constraint lah, time constraint lah, financial constraint lah, family issues lah dan sebagainya. No, it's not about you. It's about the research. It's about the study. What actually limit the study, from being done? What limit the study from extracting all the needed information? Kalau academically kita kata, mungkin lack of resources, lack of respondent cooperation, lack of sample, maybe misinterpretation of variables. So anything that will limit the study but not the researcher. Be clear about that. But I will not be judging on that, because why? Because sometimes it is very hard to anticipate what is going to happen. Because you have not yet started the research. So therefore, it's just like you imagine what is the limitation and what will be the scope of study. Until you complete the research, then you revisit this section and you amend accordingly. Yeah, amend accordingly to whatever that you have experienced when conducting the study. At the beginning, it's just you anticipating. Yeah, you anticipating what is the problem. But later, once you complete that research, then you know whether that problem exists or not, and you start to amend it accordingly. Okay, same goes to the significance of the study. We just imagine, okay, what will be the study, what are the benefit of the study to certain group of people, what will be the benefit of the study to the industry, what will be the benefit of the study to academics, yeah? So we just actually project or forecast, yeah? We just expect what is going to be contributed by the study itself. So this section is where researcher tries to convince the reader that the research is worth doing. You nak katakan bahawa research itu penting. Okay, it's very important to be conducted. Why? To whom? Ya, siapa yang bermanfaat untuk membaca research ni? Yeah, and again, okay, you will not know that until you complete the research. So at this stage, it's just you imagine or fantasize, okay, what is going to be the benefit of the research to any particular group or person. Okay, then goes to the literature review. So literature review, if we talk about research in a realistic manner, means that kalau kita bercakap daripada sudut yang betul, sebenarnya literature review bermula dulu sebelum chapter 1. Yeah, the chapter 2 start first. Because when you read the journal articles, then you can formulate your background of study. So in other way, it's actually literature review that start first before you can actually come up with chapter 1. But since the sequence is like that, okay, where you actually, the content of the reading or the summary of the reading or the synthesis of the reading are being placed in the background of study, so assuming that chapter 1 start before chapter 2. But the work actually start from chapter 2. So under literature review, okay, it is of central importance because it serves two main functions. Number one, it acquires available literature in your area of study. Dia akan bagi you pemahaman terhadap apa tajuk yang you pilih. You akan tahu apa yang orang dah buat sebelum ni, apa yang dicapai, apa hasilnya, apa dapatannya, okay, apa signifikannya, a lot of things pertaining what have already been done by previous researcher. Number two, it provides the information on method and procedures. Through literature, you should be able to identify, oh, these are the methods that the researcher has been using. These are the approach. These are the procedures. So maybe that will indirectly train you or provide you the insight of what will be the procedure and methods that you are going to use. Yeah, so it's just not about talking, it's just not about discussing the literature pertaining to the variable, but it also provide you the insight of what researcher or previous researcher have used in terms of the methodology. And of course, that will give you some ideas on how to work around the issues of the problem, and maybe you can adopt or adapt some of the approaches or procedures, okay, if it fits your study. Jadi dia akan bagi you idea lah kan, wah, A buat macam ni, B buat macam ni, C buat macam ni. So that will give you some information, okay, that will later on helps you to shape your own proposal. Clear, yeah? Okay, as far as the conceptual framework is concerned, so all research need the conceptual framework. But bear in mind, there are lots of argument with regards to the existing or the availability of conceptual framework or theoretical framework in the research. But for me, it is essential to have conceptual framework or theoretical framework because it will serve as the blueprint or the mapping of the idea. Yeah, so and it will also help the reader to comprehend better because reader can see from your framework what are your independent variables, what are your dependent variables, and if you have intervening variables, it will be very apparent on the diagram. So it represents the researcher's synthesis of literature on how to explain a phenomenon. So if that is the case, yeah, the framework will serve better in explaining what you want to do, what will be the focal point, what is the expected outcome, and what are the factors that you are looking into. So therefore, conceptual framework or theoretical framework is equally important in research. Okay, for the framework, if you don't know how to do it, maybe you can actually replicate. Yeah, I think I already told you about this. You go through some of the articles and then you find that, oh, this one is interesting. Maybe you can adapt or adopt the same framework. Yeah, but not copying everything. Yeah, it's just taking partial or taking the framework as your framework. Yeah, but the content itself, the explanation, it must come from you. Ya, yang itu tidak boleh ditiru. Because yes, research is replicable. Ingat lagi ya, research is replicable means that you can replicate previous researcher work. That will ensure that you have a very solid framework. Rather than you wandering around, memikirkan variable apa, itu mengambil masa. Jadi if you feel that, okay, you got one article and you think, oh, this is the best framework that I want to use, then you can actually replicate that framework into your research proposal. Okay, as far for the hypothesis, later we will be discussing this again as we go through all the other chapters. So it's a statement of your assumption about the prevalence phenomenon. There are certain rules and regulation or assumption that you need to fulfill before you can actually come up with hypothesis. And the wording of the hypothesis is also depends on the number of variables and what you want to actually achieve at the end of the day. Okay, and then the research methodology. So describe the study design. So this one kita akan discuss nanti. Describe the instrumentation, describe the sampling procedure, sample size, and of course a little bit on the data analysis strategy. So that will be the part of the research methodology itself. And then the structure of the report. Okay, one of the most important aspect of science is writing. Yeah, ensuring that you get all the parts of the research report in the right order. Okay, this is just a plan of study. Of course, you have only maybe 12 to 13 weeks to complete everything, which is, I think, decent, even though it might be a little bit time constrained, yeah, with regards to the preparation of the proposal. That is why I urge you to read, to continuously read and read a lot. Okay, these are just developing a time frame on how you want to actually work on your research. Yeah, kalau you boleh plan week by week, that is good lah. But I hope you don't procrastinate. Jangan buat semua last minute. Yeah, it's very, very hard. Yeah, later on, it will take a toll on you sebab you ada subjek lain juga. So that is why we don't actually encourage our students to complete the research proposal on week 14 because we know week 14 you will be cramped with other assignments. So basically, we try to have everything in place and settled by week 13, or maybe the submission will be on week 12 for the first draft before the presentation. Okay, in terms of list of reference, you can look into APA because we will be using APA style. Okay, so please adhere to the standard of APA on how to actually provide citation. Yeah, so I'm just going to show you. These are some of the exercises. Okay, basically, at the end of the day, when you learn research, when you understand the technicality of research, you should be able to actually construct the framework as you read along. Maknanya bila you membaca jurnal tu, you boleh membayangkan ataupun you boleh menghasilkan framework dia tanpa melihat kepada framework dia terlebih dahulu. Meaning that from your reading, you should be able to identify what will be the outcome, what will be the factors, what will be the predictors. Everything is in the write-up. Jadi biasakan diri you memahami itu. Bila you baca tu, oh ini tajuk ni tentang ini, oh apakah independent variable dia, apa independent variable dia. So that will actually helps you to uh, differentiate or to be more calculative in whatever that you read. Jadi jangan baca menghafal dia, tidak. You just baca, faham, boleh bezakan, so that will be good. So I think yeah, it should be okay lah, because I think people have done this before. So I hope that you take some time on doing this. Okay, I'm just going to go a little bit. Let me stop sharing this one first. Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit on formulating the research problem. Okay, and then the next class kita akan discuss in detail, because actually saya kena masuk meeting pukul 9. Right, let me share with you. Okay guys, any questions so far with regards to your proposal? I think you can start download the skeleton and put it into a Word file, and then it's just a matter of you fill in the blanks only. Yeah, but of course you need to do some work as well. So later I will discuss this with you on the next class on how to actually work on the journals. But I need to see your idea first, the first draft or the first stage. Okay. All right, let me go a little bit into formulating a research problem. So basically, okay, what we are going to do is that, okay, from your reading of the literature, we want you to actually analyze all the articles that you have read, and then try to formulate the situation or the issue that you want to actually study. For example, if you're doing topic on employee performance, you will be reading articles regarding employee performance. And from your reading, okay, you will look into the different similarities, differences, okay, what are the future recommendations, what are the findings, what are the methodology, and then you start to synthesize everything and try to come up with a research problem. So the research problem itself, okay, is any question that you want answered or to be answered, and any assumption or assertion that you want to challenge or investigate. Yeah, so that is the research problem. So the research problem will be in the research statement. Yeah, ataupun problem statement. Okay, with regards to the content itself or the problem statement, there are different school of thoughts. Banyak guru lah, banyak pemazhab. Ada yang panjang, ada yang pendek, ada yang sederhana. Okay, for me it's very simple. As long as you understand what need to be done, you understand that the problem is clear, okay, you can actually prove to us, you can convince us that yes, this is the problem, okay, through my reading of blah, 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 blah. These are the problems that I see and need to be addressed in my study. That is fine. Yeah, but not janganlah you buat problem tu, tiba-tiba you tak tahu daripada mana you dapat problem tu. Okay, remember, okay, you have to match your fantasy and your reality. So whatever that you want to do, you have to know what is currently happening outside. Apa yang sedang berlaku di luar sana. Yeah, sometimes people come with a topic due to the assumption or due to their fantasy. They fantasize the topic. But unfortunately, not everything that you fantasize can become a reality or match the reality. So that will left you with a very, very difficult situation in order to match your literature review later. So therefore, please, please, even though you can have any question that you want to be answered, but please make sure that it is realistic, it is rational, and there are support, there are backup, or there are sources that can actually support that argument. Dalam research itu penting. Maknanya apa saja yang you buat itu, tak ada masalah, you boleh buat. Tetapi pastikan it doesn't come from your fantasy. Bukan fantasy semata-mata. Bukan fiction. It's real. Okay, so therefore, reading will help you identify, oh, this is the gap, this is the thing that we need to address. And that will ensure that the topic remains relevant. So another reason why we urge you to have like 5 years back, membaca 5 tahun ke belakang, because we want to ensure that the topic that you are researching is relevant. Masih lagi diterima pakai, masih lagi boleh dikaji. Then I know that if you are talking about some areas of study such as human resource management, like for general, okay, a lot of study has been done on certain topics. Kan, kalau contohnya you type situ training and development, dah berjuta-juta dah. Even though kalau you type kat situ workplace environment, innovative work behavior, dah beratus-ratus ribu kajian yang orang buat. But that doesn't mean that you cannot do it. The only difference is that how you want to actually position yourself. Macam mana you nak letakkan supaya nampak bahawa benda tu penting. Benda tu perlu dikaji dengan segera. Okay, any question?
No, Doctor.
Yes. All right. So please, I want to see the idea. I've given you the time. Please make sure you submit everything through the WhatsApp group because I need to look at it immediately so that I can make amendments and return it back to you for further improvement. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Nanti kita akan sambung balik untuk problem identification. Okay, do you have any problem, any issues with regard to your proposal? Ada apa-apa?
Rasanya so far tak ada, sir.
Tak ada, Ada masalah? Okay, kalau ada masalah, please let me know. Okay guys, sorry I have to go into a meeting sekarang ni online. So I'm leaving you. Tapi ingat this is on online class. Okay, jadi saya tak nak bila saya tinggalkan you all tak buat apa-apa. Please spend like maybe an hour or two with your group mate and try to work on this. Okay, please, I'm also waiting for your first stage from your work. So hopefully I'll be receiving them before 5 p.m. today. Okay?
Okay, Doctor.
Again, please do not forget to